currently working as an assistant professor in Department of Pharmacy Practice, PSG College of Pharmacy. She had completed her UG, PG and PhD from Tamil Nadu Dr. MGR Medical University and has teaching experience for over 16 years. She had won award for the best outgoing student for M Pharmacy with gold medal and first rank from Periyar College of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Trichy. Dr. P. Rama has also secured prizes and awards for the case presentations and poster presentations at various international level conferences. She has guided 13 research projects from PharmD and 7 PG students, has a credit of 15 publications in various national and international journals. So now let us welcome Dr. P. Rama for the session on human ethics and its value in research. Welcome, ma'am, and over to you.
So good afternoon, one and all. So first, I thank my beloved principal for giving this opportunity, Dr. M. Ramanathan sir. So today I'm going to share my experience with the ethical committee member for from 2014 to 2020. So what is the importance and what is the procedure to get a ethical approval? We can discuss in this session. Under the title of Principle and Procedures of Ethical Approval. So the content of the presentations are introduction about the ethics and what is the role of ethics in the research and what are the principles, how the principles develop for ethical and how to get the ethical approval and what is the role of institutional review board and what is the process, how to follow, get approval and what are the documents need for to get a approval. So human research, you know that what is research and what is of human research. That is mean by research on people or about people or with the data or maybe a tissues, anything with the intention of to find any new informations or innovations from the research. So in that, ethical conduct. Ethical, theoretically, you mean it will be doing right thing. But if you are in a research, it will be mean law. So you should understand what mean by ethical conduct of research because the research involve more risk. So even you planning perfectly, you are practicing, you are giving a good methodology. Sometimes it goes wrong. So you should follow the ethical conduct of the research in your process. And many times mishaps because of the technical error or maybe because of the participants. It will be happen if you are planning even perfectly. So it is very important to understand the ethical principles in the human research. So ethical considerations, it means by nothing. It's a set of principles, that is guidelines, that will direct the researchers to do the research in the ethical way. So all researchers must always adhere to the principle of ethics when you are collecting, when you are doing the research with the human beings. So whatever your goal, the goal of the research will be different for the different projects. Maybe it will be a real-time phenomena, or studying effective treatment, or investigating behaviors, or improving the lives of the people in different ways. So whatever the goal, the method what you are following and how you are conducting the research is a key factor for the ethical consideration. So the ethical consideration will focus on the three points. That is, the first one is to protect the rights of research participants and enhance the research validity and maintain the scientific integrity, means scientific validity, values. So that way it will be very important. So research ethics, the matter that will be correlating and it will be validating the scientific integrity, human rights and dignity, and give the relationship between the science and society. So also the principle ensure the participants' protections, whether voluntary and informed and safe to the participants. And the research always give the balance. The researcher have to balance the to get an important research point from the research, at the same time using the ethical research methods and procedure. So always necessary, it always necessary to prevent permanent or excessive harm to the participants, even it is unintentional or not. So if you are disobeying the research ethics, that will be lower your value of research, because the people not trust your data if morally questionable. So you should always obey the ethical principles. So even if the research methods and research is valuable to the society, it does not justify violating the human rights or dignity of your study participants. So on some occasion, the practice of research has even involved deliberate and appalling violation of human beings. So now come to the how the principle develops for the ethical consideration. That is the development of principle for ethical conduct of research. Then in early years in 1900, there is no regulations, guidelines, or any code or any principles to conduct the research, and no IRBs, no institutional review boards to follow or review the protocols. So after the different incidents of the research, the rules and regulations were established. From that, the international and national guidelines were developed. So then they made compulsory all the established research institute to develop or create their own IRB, that is the Institutional Review Board. So the incidents, it started with 1946, that is by American military court that released the reports, criminal report against 23 leading German physicians for the misconduct of research against the humanity. So what the physician is done is, the German physician conduct a medical experience of thousands of concentration camp prisoners without their consent. Some research is on the prisoner without any consent from the participants. So most of the subjects involved in the experiments are died or were permanently developed disability because of the research. So as the result of that trial, that name is called Nuremberg Code, was established in 1948. So that Nuremberg Code, it emphasized that the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential, and the researcher have to be clear to the participant about the study to give a consent, and also how to the benefits of the research must be over by the risk. Means the research have a benefit, then the risk. So after develop this code, even it not developing or not helping to develop a force of law, but it's just an international document that will support the voluntary participation protection only. So then the Declaration of Helsinki is developed in 1964. That is by World Medical Association established the recommendations about the medical doctors in biomedical research involving human subject. So these declarations include the international research ethics and that defines the rules in the name of research combined with clinical care and non-therapeutic research. And this declaration is further revised in the later years in 1975, 1983, 1989, and 1996. So that will help to develop a good clinical practice which we used currently. So this declaration, it emphasized that research with human should be used based on the previous experiment with the labs and animals. And the research protocol should be reviewed by the independent committee members period to start the study. Then informed consent, how to be get from the participant is necessary. Then research should be conducted by medically and scientifically qualified individual. Those are expert in the area have to be conduct the research, and risk should not exceed benefits. So this is declared by the Helsinki. The next keystone in the development of ethical principle was a project by the US Public Health Service. So that's another incident. It will be insist to develop the principles of ethics. So that is the Public Health Service conduct a research on 600 low-income African males. Out of that, 400 diagnosed with the syphilis were monitored for 40 years in the name of free medical examinations without giving any medical treatment to the subject, and also not revealing the disease, about the disease to the study participants. They are not giving any treatment. Even the treatment available for the syphilis at the time of 1950, that is penicillin is available, but the participants are left untreated with the, without any medicines. So the researcher, if it is treated with any other physician, also be identified by the researcher to prevent the treatment. So that panel, that is a review panel, will address this, and they will be creating the research ethics, and it will be develop a public violence also in the US government, and it will be closed by the government in 1973. So after that incidents, the National Commission for the Protection of Human Subject of Biomedical and Behavioral Research was formed in the US. So this commission draft the report that is called Belbone Report. That is a foundational document for the ethics of human subject research in the US. So what is the report? Belbone Report was published in 1979, which summarized the basic ethic principles and guidelines which assist in resolving the ethical principles that surround the conduct of research with the human subjects. So this Belbone Report, it basically covered the three principles, that is respect of persons, beneficence and justice, which are the three cornerstones which is covered in the Belbone Report. So this is the principle, and what is their application to for the principles. So first one is a respect for persons. They implement informed consent. To give the respect to the participant, they introduce the informed consent. Then beneficence, they started to assess the risk benefit ratio, and for the justice, they will be selection of the subject based on their need of the study. These are the three cornerstones by the Belbone reports. So these are the international guidelines is started, and it will be implemented for the ethics. So then development of principle for ethical conduct research in India from the international guideline. India and other nations also started to develop a principle. So in India, ICMR has developed and distributed the guidelines for the research involving human subjects. So this ICMR guidelines emphasize that only such research should be undertaken whose purpose could be advanced. So that study how to be accept, which having better for all. Then also address the should not compromise the dignity and well-being of the subjects, and should avoid the historical pitfall of unethical research, and how to ensure the scientific output. Scientifically valid proposal have to be conduct the research. So these are the guidelines by the ICMR from 1980. Then it is revised by 2000 and 2006, and currently used 2017 version. And also during COVID time, they released the ethical guideline for ethics committee reviewing biomedical and health research during COVID pandemic also. So these guidelines all will explained by the next session by Dr. Shivakumar sir. So from the guidelines, they made the common rule to everyone doing the human research. That is currently is ethical approval is mandatory for doing human research. Even to apply the funding agency to start a PhD or your PG program, PG project or UG project, whatever you are doing any human research, you need to apply ethical approval. So the main elements of the common rule is recommend for assuring compliance by research institutions, recommend for researchers obtaining and documenting informed consent, and have a IRB membership, functions, operations, and review of research and record keeping, and additionally protection for certain vulnerable research subjects, etc. So these are the main element for all the ethical principles. So ethical is need even the patient is not involved, having no risk or minimal risk. Only you are asking any question, survey. So even though you need to get a ethical approval. So next come to the how to get a ethical approval for your study. So before start your study or you are start to applying any funding agency or you are starting your academic project, the first step to submit your proposal to your institutional review board. So institutional review board, it will be the institution have their own review board, or it may be affiliated to the another attached to the other institution IRB. So where it is attached, they can be get a approval from the IRB. So IRB committee, they check whether the research aim and the designs are ethically acceptable and scientifically valid to do the study in the, and it will be benefit to the society. So everything it will be analyzed, reviewed by the IRB committee, and they will be give the approval. And the validity will be 1 year. At maybe can be if you want to be continue after 1 year, you need to be renew your approval every year. So what is IRB? I told what is the IRB is always called as also called as ethics committee. So the purpose of ethics committee to assure that both in advance and periodic review that appropriate steps are taken to protect the rights and welfare of the human participants in the research. And with that, IRB use a group of members to review the protocols and related material to ensure the protection of participants. So for that, IRB have their own SOP, standard operating procedure, based on the national and the international guideline. They have to be developed their own standard operating procedure. So researchers have to be follow the SOPs of the IRBs. Then the composition members of the IRBs are IRBs have at least 5 members. The minimum members should be 5. You can maximum many members can recruit. The members with varying background should be included in the IRB committee. Then at least 1 member from non-scientific area, it may be a lay persons, to understand whether they are understanding the what research is going on. Then at least 1 member who is not affiliated to the IRB site. Independent member, that is all members from the institution IRB, institutions of IRB, but at least 1 member should be not from the same institution, that is from the outside. Then competent members who are able to review and evaluate the science and medical aspects and ethics the proposed trial. That is a scientific area. Those are expert in the particular area. You can be include all their names as a members or special consultant for review the proposals. So if it is pediatricians, or you can be add cardiologists, gynecologists, expert in the particular area, you can be add as a scientific person from the different area where they are expert to review the proposal related to the particular area. And also have to be add as a member one legal expert to define all the legal issues. Then the members have to be 50% male and 50% female members. It should not be all female, all male candidate. Should be 50% male and 50% female candidate. Then what is the core responsibility of the IRB, Institutional Review Board? That is the first and most work of responsibility of IRB to review the proposal, to analyze does the study have real potential individual community benefit. Then they give the rights to the research participants, and does the potential benefit is more than the risk of the research participants, and will the participant and communities have access to study finding and benefits of the research to the society, and what is the mechanism for provision of safety, care and support to the research participants. And also IRB have to do the site monitoring, so that is visit the area where the research is going to analyze and see the rights of to see the protection of participants. Then come to the process, how to get the approval from the IRBs. So once you prepared your proposal, you want to applying any funding, or if you want to do your academic project, you have to prepare your application and everything forms that we'll discuss later, how to be applied or sent to the IRB first. Then in IRB, they will categorize the proposal, whether it will have a risk, more risk or less risk, and it will be reviewed by the reviewers in the different methods. Then the comments by the reviewers, it's sent to the researcher. Then if you have researcher need to clarify any questions, any information, you have to be clarified with the IRBs, that is committee members, and you have to be get a approval. You have to be clear and clarify everything. You have to get the approval. So if anything is be risk to the participants, or anything it will be not benefit to the society, if anything is not scientifically not valid, then it will be not approved by the ethical committee. They need a clear clarification for that from the researcher. So here they categorized the proposal. This is the protocol by the member secretary of the IRB, and they will categorize the protocol based on the risk. That is less than minimal risk, and minimal risk over minor risk over minimal risk, and more than the minimal risk. There's a high risk group. So based on that, they fix the method of review process. If it is less than minimal risk, the method is exemption from review. Then minimal risk is expedited review. Then if have minor risk over minimal or more than minimal risk, have full board review. So what is mean, how they calculate the risk is, how they categorize the risk is, less than minimal risk mean the research in which there is no physical, emotional, psychological or economical risk to the participant. No risk, nothing happened to anything on the patients, that will be considered as a less than minimal risk. That will be qualified as a minimal risk. This research qualify as exempt if it is does not involve any special population. If you including any vulnerable population, that is children, pregnant women, and prisoners, or handicapped elderly population, and critically ill patients, they are considered as a vulnerable population. If you are including that population, even no risk, no harm to the people, it will be considered as a high risk group. So it will be goes to the full board review process. Then come to what is mean by minimal risk. It means that the harm or discomfort to the participants. So what they routinely having the daily life or during the performance of the routine test or physical or psychological examination or investigations. So however, in some cases like surgery, chemotherapy or radiation therapy, their routine life have their risk and they have some harm in their daily life. So it's all considered as a minimal risk for the research participants undergoing for the research. That all under consider the minimal risk. If you are doing research on that part, it will be considered as a minimal risk. It will go for the expedited review process. Then what mean by more than minimal risk? That mean harm, the probability of harm or discomfort anticipated in the research is invasive or greater than the minimal risk. It will be harm. It's directly, it will be indicating your research. It will indicating harm to the participant, that will be considered as a more than minimal risk. And also if you are including the special population, it will be considered as more than minimal risk. The example for that is if you are doing any interventional study using drug, device or invasive procedure like lumbar puncture or doing biopsy, liver or lung biopsy, an endoscopic procedure and giving intravenous sedation and other diagnostic procedure, all under the more than minimal risk, it need full board review process. So in full board review process, the IRB members will review the protocols and the researcher have to be present the protocol in front of the members and they will be discussed. You have to be answer and you have to be clarify all the doubts in front of the members. And if it is everything, it will be okay, then it is not harm directly to the participant and you have more benefit in your study, you can get a approval from the full board review process. Then what are the documents it's need for the ethical approval? So these are the documents it's needed when you are applying for the ethical approval. So first one is you have to be submit IRB application. Along with the application form, you have to be attached study protocol and budget and funding sources. Informed consent form. It will be either assent form or waiver form. And you have to be attached the CV of all researchers, that is investigators involved in the projects. And you have to be attached the questionnaires and data collection form and permission letter and the confidentiality statement. So all these you have to be submit to the IRB. So come to the what is the content of application? What need to be well in the application form? What you have to be prepared to fill the application form? First, you have to be write the title of the study. From the title, the secretary members and see whether it will be goes to the what kind of review process. Then you have to write all the names, affiliation, and name of the qualification of the all investigators involved in the particular research topic. Then you have to be write roles and responsibility of all the investigators. What is their each investigator responsibility? So who will do the methods and who will collect the data collection, who will do the statistics, and who will prepare the protocol. So everything, what is the responsibility, you have to be right. And you have to mention the contact information of all the investigators. At least you have to write principal investigator contact information. And if you are applying any funding agency or if you are self-funded, you have to be right about what is your source of funding and what is your duration of study. And you have to be give consent. You have to be write what kind of consent. You have to be write it in the application, whether it will be informed consent or it will be a waiver of consent or it may be a assent. So what kind of consent you are going to be collect, that you have to be write it in the application form. And you have to be write whether you have anybody having a conflict of interest in the particular research topic. And after completion of the project, how many years you are going to be store your data or your archival of your documents, and where your document store your data collection, and after completion how you are disseminate your study result. Then you have to be submit the permission letters where you are conducting the research, and you have to submit the checklist of all the documents by what you are submitted to the IRB. Then come to the study protocol. So for the ethical approval, you have to be, along with the application form, you have to submit the study protocol. So what are the content of study protocol? You have to be submit to the ethical committee is, you have to be give us some brief summary about your project with the title, and you have to give some literatures related to your particular topic, and how it will, your topic is important, and how it will benefit to the society, and how it will have a novelty or innovation in your study part. That justification you have to be give, and what is your aim and objectives, and you have to be write your study design, what kind of study design you are going to be follow, whether it will be retrospective or prospective or enemy cohort study, what case control, what kind of study intervention, what kind of study you are going to be follow. You have to be write it in the study design, and which population you are going to be collect the sample or research participants for your research subject for your study. You have to be mentioned which study population you are going to be select, whether from the different department, maybe it's maybe a community, or maybe in the hospital. In the hospital, the different departments, whether it is a pediatric population or maybe a cancer patients or populations, you have to be mentioned. From that, you are going to be select your research participants. So then you have to be give a calculation for sample, how many sample research participants you have to be collect, that you have to be write, you have to be calculate, and you have to write the sample numbers are going to be collect, with why you are collecting the particular sample numbers. You have to be give justification. So whether it will either 100 or 50, whatever the numbers, you have to give why you are collecting the sample of 100. This is very important. If you are collecting more than that approval amount, it will be unethical. So for that, you have to, again, you have to get approval, or you have to be give amendments to the ethical committee to further increase the sample. So when you are submitting proposal, you have to correctly calculate the sample and give to the ethical committee, and you have to be add inclusion, what is your inclusion and exclusion criteria based on your design of the study. Then it can be mentioned the methodology, what methodology materials you are going to be used for the particular study as flowchart. You can be give here. I'm giving some example of flowchart. So how we are following, how we are be going to be do your research in the flowchart method. Then if you are collecting any biological samples or any materials, hazard materials, or any specimens in your project, that you have to mention how many days or years you have to be stored, and what is the disposal procedure you are going to be follow that for that biological materials. Then you can be write what is the risk in the project and what is the benefit in the project, and what kind of analysis, statistical analysis you are going to be apply for result for your results, and you have to be give a itemized budget and references. So these all you have to prepare as a study protocol for applying ethical approval. So then come to the fund budget and funding sources. See, for ethical approval, you have to be first, you have to be given what is your budget statement. As a tabular column, you can be give how much it will be expense for your project. So it may be by self-funded, or maybe institution will sponsor, or you can be get from the funding agency. Whatever it, you have to be specified that what is the budget of your project, even if it is academic project or your thesis, PhD thesis, whatever it, you have to give a budget to the ethical committee. So they will ask how it will be, the budget will be, who will spare the budget, because if you are recruiting the participant, the budget not be on the participants. So you should be spent, or you have to be get from funding agency. So that is very important for to get a ethical approval. So then very important area is informed consent. So informed consent is nothing, you are getting permission, written permission from the research participant with explaining all the informations about your study, and they are giving the permission with understanding everything about the study. So it's a decision to participate in research by the research participant with the necessary informations and adequately understood the information, and considering the information voluntarily agrees to participate. So that is very important. When they're reading all the informations of your study, they voluntarily have to be signed in the informed consent. It should not be compulsion or any influence in the informed consent. It's very important. Then informed consent, it contains, you have to write the name of the investigators, all the name of the investigator, and you have to be mentioned the research title as well as justification, importance of your study to the participants, research participant, and what is your objectives and how many samples you are going to be collect, and study volunteers or participants with a specific population group or age group you are going to be collect. So if you are study collect the sample in any specific group, whether it will be elder patients, then you have to be tell clearly, I'm going to do the study with the elder population in the age group. Or if you are doing any vulnerable population or any specific population, that you can be clearly mentioned that. And where you are doing that project also have to be mentioned as the location. Then if you are is research having any interview process or any education sessions, that you have to be mentioned, how much time you are going to be take for the initial interview, final interview, and for the health education session. Everything have to be clearly mentioned in the informed consent. And if you are having any blood sample collection, you have to mention what is the purpose of blood sample collection, and you have to be specify the what quantity you are collecting, and whether any medications are given before the blood sample collection. So everything you are clearly given in the blood sample collection part to understand the participants. Then you have to explain what is the benefit, and if it is any risk, you have to be clearly tell to the participants, study participants. Then you also be explain about the reimbursement or compensation for all the study participants. If you have anything, you are giving as compensation for the reimbursement, you have to be explained that also. And if any emergency medical treatment is necessary during the study period, that also explained in your informed consent. And what is the protocol followed for the compensation if any injury happened during the study period. Then in important sentence you have to make it in your informed consent, that is right to withdraw from the interview or study at any time. You have to give freedom to all the study participants. You can withdraw from the study at any time if you are not comfortable with the study. That freedom you have to give to the study participants. And you have to get the signature from the study participants or any from the legal representative of the participant if you are not getting from the study participants. Then you have to be signature from the interviewer and also by the investigators, and also you have to provide the ethical committee office number to contact if anything is goes wrong. So that is about the informed consent. Then come to the assent form or parental consent form. So parental consent form, it will be for if the study involved pediatric population, because we can't get the signature from the pediatric population, the people not understanding what is going on. So that is the assent form or parental form. You have to be get a signature from the parent or legal guardian that clearly inform about the study that involving the particular child. So you have to, addition to the informed consent, you have to add the name of the child, and you have to be at the point the age of the children. So you have to check what is the age of the children, and from then you have to be get the signature of the parents or the legal guardian with the, and also signature of the investigators. So that is the assent form. It's also be similar to informed consent form. Additionally, you have to be add the guardian signature with the children's age and name. So next is waiver consent form. So waiver consent form, the ethical committee will give some not necessary to give all the study, not necessary to give an informed consent. It will give some waiver, that is completely waiver the recommends to obtain informed consent by the IRBB in some special situations. That will be the research involved no more than minimal risk. That is no risk to the participants. It will be considered as a less than the minimal risk. It will be no need of informed consent. You can give a waiver consent. Then not adversely affect the rights and welfare of the subject. Then research could not practically carried out without the waiver or alteration. Then whenever appropriate, the subject will be provided with additional information continuously. If you are giving continuous information whenever the participant is necessary, then there is no contact with the participants. If you are collecting only from the record, there is no contact directly with the participants. That situation, it can be collect waiver of consent. And also in emergency situation, then if they are using any alternate method, recording consent, instead of informed consent, if you are recording consent, that time it can be provide waiver of consent. So waiver of consent also have to be, you mentioned the principal investigator name and title of the project, all co-investigator names, and you have hereby assure that right of participants will not be violated, and also measure following measures that describe in the protocol for protecting confidentiality of data and privacy of research participants, and give the undertaking that is declared that the content of all the copies, documents submitted to the IRBs are same. So that way you have to give a waiver consent form. The next is a CV of the research participants. So again, it will be important to the ethical committee to see the expertise of the investigators in the particular research area. So you have to submit all the researchers CV, investigators CV to the ethical approval. So next you have to get a permission letter. So permission letter, if you are doing in the IRB setup, institutional review board setup, then you can get a permission. If you have different department within the institution, you can get a permission letter from the departments. Then if you are doing the research outside the IRB campus, institute not within the campus of IRB, if you are doing outside that, then it's affiliated to the particular IRB, then you have to get permission from where you are conducting the research. If you are doing any project in the community, if you are doing any project in the school, then you can get a permission letter from the respective schools, or from the community, you have to get a permission. So then only you can acceptable by the IRB to provide a ethical approval. Then it is very essential if you're doing multicentric study or collaborative study, because if the area of study or location of the study will be different. So in each area or from each location, you have to collect the permission letter to get a approval, or you have to apply ethical approval in the each location, or you have to apply in the all the location to get to carry out the multicentric or collaborative study. So next is a questionnaires or data collection form. So that is depends upon your study need. You can make a data collection form. What are the information you need for your research, that you can make it as a data collection form. Or if it is a questionnaire type of study, you have to submit the questionnaire. The questionnaire have to be in the local language, both English and in the local language where you are doing the study. And informed consent also, assent and informed consents also have to be in the English as well as the local languages to understand the research participant. So next is a confidentiality. So confidentiality, that means you should not reveal any information about the research participants during your study period. That is a confidentiality. So you have to give a confidentiality statement, that is protection of information related to research and research participants and not disclosure to unauthorized individuals. So hereby you are assuring that data taken will be used only for the study purpose, and the subject information or identity will not be revealed to anybody under any circumstance. With the signature of all the investigator, you have to give a confidentiality statement. So with this, you have to be applied to the institutional review board, have to get a ethical approval. So any clarification need, the member will ask you and you have to be clarified and you have to get a approval. So that's all about the ethical approval process. So thank you for listening, everyone. So finally, so that is each human have a rights, have their own freedom. So the researcher have to treat the participant with love and respect. That is very important to follow the ethical principle. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your valuable information. And we were able to understand how to go for IRB, what are the protocols to be followed, and how to give the documents. Everything was very much informative and useful to everyone. So, participants, do you have any questions? Can post in chat box, or you can directly talk to ma'am. So I think there's no more questions, ma'am. So thank you for your valuable information and sharing your thoughts regarding IRB approval, ma'am. And now the session is going to be handed over to Dr. Shiv Kumar, sir. So Dr. Shiv Kumar, sir, is currently working as a professor in the Department of Pharmacy Practice, PhD College of Pharmacy. His area of research interests are artificial intelligence in pharmacotherapy, oncology pharmacy practice, gestational diabetes mellitus, medicine utilization evaluation. He has 15 international publications and 1 national publication in his credit. He has guided over 10 PharmD projects and 35 PG projects. He has organized, participated, and presented papers at various conferences, workshops, and symposiums on clinical pharmacy practice, pharmacovigilance, and therapeutic drug monitoring at national and international levels. So now let us welcome Dr. V. Shivkumar, sir, for the session on human ethics and its values in research. Welcome, sir, and over to you.
Good afternoon to all. The presentation. Am I able to see?
Yes, sir. Sir, will you please put it on slideshow?
Yes, sir. I change the slides.
Okay, sir.
Provide.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Very good afternoon. Today I'm going to discuss national ethical guidelines for human research. This is basically I'm going to deal about that what is ethics and what's the need of ethical guidelines and how the ethical guidelines happening in India and related to that and what are the principles being incurred in the ethical guidelines by Indian government. So first we start with the ethics. Ethics is basically a word derived from Greek words ethos. It means custom or characters. By in mid of 18th century, Aristotle first used the term ethos. It means it's a man who has the custom, a man who has the character, a man who has the privacy, like it's applicable all to the society. So ethos in the sense it's a character, personal, individualized things like this we could understand. So when ethos derived as ethics, the ethics have the many way to develop many versions is arise. And now the definition if you see in the Oxford Dictionary, the ethics means it is sorry. So I'm continuing. Sorry for the interruption. Now, right now, if you see the ethics as a descriptions, the Oxford University see that's a study of what is right and wrong in the human behavior. So we are focusing for as a human what is right and what is wrong. This is the right, this is wrong. Like I say, ethical consideration we are giving in our behavior and our particularly in the Oxford, if you go, it's a behavior, but in the general sense, it's not only behavior, it governed with all other aspects of the human. Ethics is a subject deals with all other aspects as I mentioned here that comes in the values, principles, beliefs, and opinions. So individual persons, human, is the subject goes with the respect to the values and principles and beliefs and opinions of any individuals. And so it covers the ethics in the sense it covers all the area, all the dignities, values, principles, beliefs, and opinions of individual human beings. Ethical guidelines in the sense what? This is the code or content or discipline concerned with what is morally good or bad and morally right or wrong. So as a ethics, how it describes which is right and which is wrong, the same manner, a code being developed, it has many principles, many disciplines, it's concerns with the morally, which is good or which is bad to the human beings. Likewise, it goes as ethical guidelines. So what's the need for ethical guidelines? Many problems when as a clinical research, if you started doing the human being, then the more problems may arise in all the way, particularly addressing the issues in the sense. The goal of clinical research is generation of useful knowledge about human health and illness. Right? So the benefit to the participants is not the purpose of research. We merely to the purpose of research, we are not including the participants. Although it does occur, since we are including for the purpose of research only, but the purpose of research alone cannot be determined to include the participants for the research. So these are the moral problems. We are utilizing as a objects. So it should not happen. The research should take care of the participants also. The outcomes goes to participants all the way to the society. Then people are the means to developing useful knowledge and are thus at risk of exploitation because they are involving, they have the major risk, they are exploiting for the particular research. There's a meaning for that exploitations. The risk they are incurred should give some outputs. In that manner, clinical research can be considered, and these all considered as some moral problems in the clinical research. To address all these, we need some ethical guidelines. Minimize the possibility of exploitation. So guidelines can help. Guidelines can make the things correct. So in the what another way it can make the correct. So it can possibly minimize the exploitations. Exploitation in the sense all the way risk incurred to the populations, any human participants. So the possibility of exploitation we can minimize through the guidelines, and we can ensure that the rights and welfare of subjects are respected while they contribute to the generation of knowledge. Since we are developing knowledge in the health science or in the social area, the knowledge generation is basically by exploitation or basically by incurring the risk to the participants, but we are ensuring that rights and welfare of the subjects are respected. Then we are generating the knowledge. So this is the way the guidelines can protect any human beings. And the logical or core part of this area guidelines is do no harm. Do no harm is the term actually we started to see in very early 18th centuries, even the term being used as a hypocrite terms. I could add over here that as to disease, make a habit of two things to help, or at least to do no harm. Right? So we are not able to get anything. The outcome of the research is not at all useful, but we are concerning over the welfare of the subjects. Some of the old term guidelines I put here. Then it starts from the 13th century BC itself in Siddha, the area of medicines, where the guidelines being given to the participants and the practitioners who are doing this healthcare area. The 10th century BC, it's clearly depicts are given in the Saraka Samhita and Susra Samhita. 4th century BC, Hippocratic oath being added. That's a important area I mentioned it here. Other than this, many areas being added. We could add. I'm mentioning only these three. The Hippocrates oath I could read. Yes, I will prescribe regimens for the good of my patients according to my ability and my judgment, and never do harm to anyone. So never do harm to anyone is the oath, basically the core of any guidelines. Modern time guidelines, if you see, some of the history we could recall how the modern time guidelines been developed. Those histories included with the guidelines. The history in the sense that maleficence, the harm, otherwise harms happen to the participants or humans. Basically, because of those illness, irrespectful happenings, the codes and principles and guidelines being developed. One of the guidelines developed in the 1949 is a Nuremberg Code. Nuremberg Code is basically developed after that Nazi doctors conducted the trials in the concentration camps. After that, the Nuremberg Code being developed. After all that illness happened to those participants, the Nuremberg Code being developed. This is 10 guidelines, we could say. The guidelines it's telling about the voluntariness of the participants. Participant consent is important, like this. It's been initiated because that concentration camp, the trial actually without any permission to the participants, it's all been conducted. The next important area, if you see in the sense, the Declaration of Helsinki. The Helsinki, the city in Finland, 1964, some declaration been made finally to the approval for the guidelines. That declaration is concern not only the participants. In the Nuremberg Code, if you see the consent, very importantly focused for the participant consent. Here, the practitioners, their involvement in the research, along with the consent, all being declared. So this is the important breakthrough in the declaration, the ethical guidelines, that is Declaration of Helsinki, 1964. 1979, the Belmont report being given by the US government. Belmont report is breakthrough in the US history. To say the Belmont report is taking care of all the way the guidelines for the practitioners as well as participants who took that. How the guidelines and ethical been developed in India in the sense, we could see major area apex body in the development of ethical guidelines is Indian Council of Medical Research. This is basically a apex body in India for formulation, coordination, and promotion of biomedical research. Whatever the biomedical research happened in India, the guidelines and formulations all can be developed and governed by the body. There's a apex body, that is ICMR, and it conduct, coordinate, and implement medical research for the benefit of the society too. So it's also governing in that manner. So these three other parties translating medical innovations into product processes and introducing them into the public health system. These three major area ICMR working. As a history, we see Indian Council of Medical Research is one of the oldest medical research bodies in the world. It even in the British time, it's been evaluated. First, it is called Indian Research Fund Association, being developed in 1911 for funding and coordinating the research. Here I mentioned the important changes and development in the ICMR history. But after that 1911, many aspects, many changes been made. Many institutes been developed under the ICMR. In 1949, the IRFA been registered as Indian Council of Medical Research. After the British rule, it's developed and registered as an Indian Council for Medical Research. Currently, it have 32 institutes and centers, 6 regional medical research centers, then 70 field stations also comes under ICMR. In 2017, it comes under the Department of Health Research of Health Ministry. ICMR guidelines, you see, 1980, the first it given the policy statement on ethical considerations. It involved in research on human subject. We could see that after the Belmont report in 1979, the 1980 Indian government under the ICMR is given the policy statement to adopt the all guidelines. So this basically is telling for the Indian citizens what are the policy for ethical consideration, those research involved in the human subjects. 2000, that all the way countries' development in the health science, health researches. The 2000 new ethical guidelines for biomedical research on human subject in the title. The guidelines been delivered by the ICMR. That has one more revision on 2006 as an ethical guideline for biomedical research on human participants. Here, subjects changed into the participants, and many aspects are actually being added in 2006. Between this 2000 and 2006, many other areas have been also developed in India. Other guidelines also given by the government of India. In 2001, you see that CDSCO actually developed the GCP guidelines, Indian GCP, Good Clinical Practice Guidelines for clinical trials, focusing on clinical trials that been developed. Since it's the apex body and it's more focused for the human ethical values, and it's governing in generally clinical research. That may be clinical trials, that may be the student research, that may be in any individual investigator research, but it covers focusly for the human ethical values. 2006 that actually revised and been developed, but after the 2006 long period and many science and related to the health it developed in India, and there is a need to update the guidelines for the current scenario. Many aspects being added in the new revised things, guidelines that has been delivered in 2017. The terms all been changed like National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical and Health Research involving human participants. Here, these 2017 guidelines actually considered with the many group advisory, many talks, and all the conflict of interest been considered. Finally, the 2017, the ICMR released these guidelines. These guidelines are updated with many aspects like LGBT been added, sexual minorities, lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgenders, social studies, societal studies, behavioral studies, genetic studies, children involvement in the studies, all been updated, and it's becoming the huge guidelines, and it's very clear guidelines, and many developing countries since following these guidelines. And it have many appreciations from the worldwide regulators, communities. What's the scope of this ICMR guidelines? These guidelines are applicable to all biomedical, social, and behavioral science research for health conducted in India involving human participants, their biological material, and data. So now the guidelines covers not only the human participants, their safety, their well-being, but so far you see the old guidelines, patient safety, subject safety, their participant, their willingness, their consent, likewise it's taken care. But the recent guidelines, if you see, not only their consent, but it's also included their biological material and even data too. So the all comes under data, biological material, human participants, all comes under the guidelines. As a scope, we could see. So general principle, what are the basic general principles mentioned in this guidelines, 2017 guidelines by ICMR. 2017 guidelines ICMR have the 4 basic ethical principles. In Belmont report in 1979, if you see it, first time the Belmont report actually mentioned the 3 basic principles. One of the principles, respect to the persons, beneficence, and justice. But in the general principles by the ICMR, one more principle has been added, like 4 basic ethical principles. That is, added principle is non-beneficence, respect for persons, beneficence, non-beneficent, justice. This is the 4 basic principle guidelines. The whole guidelines been developed. These 4 basic ethical principles actually converted into 12 general ethical principles. Why it is converted in the sense, it's the explanation comes under the 12 principles. First, essentiality, principle of essentiality. What is the essentiality of the human participants for this research? We are developing research, we are conducting research. That research we are ensuring the human participant is important for this study. The outcome of this research is purely depends on human participant. That is the first principle, whether we need human participant for this study or not. The research should address the essentiality of human participant for the research. The second, if you see the voluntariness of the participant, principle of voluntariness, it explains or it ensures the human participant, they are having the rights to involve in the study, involve in the research. They are having the rights, they are having the rights to withdraw from the study, they are well aware about the study. It completely depends on the participants. Their voluntariness should be ensured. That's the principle of voluntariness. The third one is non-exploitation. Non-exploitation. Populations we are involving, participants we are involving in the research, that should not be a risk for their individuals. As an individual participant, there should not be risk. How the exploitation word comes in the sense, the society or individual persons we are taking, there should not be a discrimination. It should be distributed fairly to the all participants. Whoever the participant interested, that should be fairly distributed to allow them for the participate in the study. Still, it's a rights to human to participate in the study, but the non-exploitation should be considered as a principle. As a society, we should not go with a particular society always to do the research. That other society also have the rights to involve in the study. That is the one side, one manner, one approach we could take. Other approach, we are doing one group of population, one group of society, or one type, one area of the populations, or individual human. We are not involving the others. So we are giving exploitation over here, but not for the others. So in both way, we are we could understand here their rights also being exploited, their involvement also being exploited. So this is the principle of non-exploitation. Then principle of social responsibility. Social responsibility, the research we are developing, we are conducting, that should not give any disrupting the social harmony. Social population, they have the culture, the regional ways, they're having the economical ways, legal ways, whatever the area, the social have their own integrity. That integrity should not be disturbed because of your research, because of your research outcomes. That is called social responsibility. The next one is principle of ensuring privacy and confidentiality. The populations, society, individual participants, their privacy and confidentiality maintenance is mentioned in this principle. Because all the sensitive data, as per now, other regulatories in India, if you take what all are the content can be considered as a private consent, private information. Even identifying the individuals considered as a privacy. Asking the name considered as a privacy. Individuals, the telephone number considered as a privacy. So the ethical guidelines now addressing those also. It's very confidential information. Then privacy should be restored. The unauthorized person access to your data, unauthorized publications of your data are being controlled by these principles. The next one is principles of risk minimization. Ethical committee and stakeholders involved in this general research all should have the due respect and give the utmost knowledge for the minimization of risk in this study. The human participants involved in this research, what are their risks being and understand with the light of their knowledge, how much risk can be minimized. The minimal more risk to the study participants give them better outcome. That's the expectation of ethical guidelines. The next seventh principle is competence. professional competence. Who all are involved in the research? All the stakeholders considered to the researchers, investigators, ethical committee persons, all should have a professional competence. They are duly experienced. They are legally correct persons to do the study. These are the basic competence being addressed in this principle of professional competence. Next, maximization of benefits. The same manner, all the stakeholders involved in this research addressing the benefit of maximization. The research being added, research being conducted, but risk being minimized, but still the exploitation will happen, risk happen, because themselves they are coming, they are participant voluntarily and they are taking the risk for their life. So all these facts put together, what's the outcome of the research? So maximization of benefit has to be addressed. Next one. Ninth, institutional arrangements. Why the principle of institutional arrangements here? Research can be in any descriptive manner, any area also. Some of the individual investigators do the research, students project also taken care by the institutions. Otherwise, their research is taking care or conducting in the area that considered as institutions. So those institutions have the responsibility for the certain arrangements. They are making the arrangements or facilities to conduct the research. They have the facility to give the training for the participants, participants in the sense stakeholder researchers and involved persons in the research. Institutions should have all the way of these arrangements. That principles is also mentioned in principles of institutional arrangements. The next one is principle of transparency and accountability. The whole study, a whole research from initiating to the end, it should be very transparent. The research, conception of research, conduction of research, and post-conduction, the report of the research, all together, it should be open to the public or open to the any persons who can assess. So here, assess in the sense, all other principles also involved like privacy and confidentiality, and the report must be go through. So government arrange many protocols for the transparency and accountability of the early research. Clinical trial registry in India that been developed. So any kind of research has to be registered in the clinical trial registry of India. So the what are the trials or what are the research going on? Any individual person can assess, can come to voluntarily if they wish to get the access, get the information, wish to participate in the study. All the way it can be understood. So transparency should be maintained. Then accountability, the documents, even after the completion of the research for a certain period, minimum of 2 years, the documents, all the data has to be stored. That easy has to be ensured. The next one is totality of responsibility. Totality of responsibility. Individual who are involved in the conduct of research have their own responsibility. Apart from that, the whole research responsibility goes for everyone. Whatever the research you are doing and your portion of the research is in different manner, but the whole responsibility, total responsibility is spread to all others. The next one is environmental protection. EC committee members, the research investigators, all have the responsibility, all has to ensure that the research utilizes the environment, research taken the resources from the environment, but it should have the protection on the environment, the availability, because of the results, outcome of the research, all should have a certain level of protection to the environment and whatever the resource being utilized for the research, that also has to be protected. So in this manner, 12 guidelines, general principles being mentioned in these guidelines. Next, based on these guidelines and other aspects, continuing of research, when we are starting from the end of the research, many ethical issues being developed. Those ethical issues also been addressed, and it's totally it's 11 basic ethical issues being addressed. Benefit and risk assessment. That's the first ethical issues being discussed. Benefit risk assessment reasons. Here the benefit is benefit of the research. Here benefit of the research goes to individual human participant as well as to the society. What benefit because of this research? Because we are involving the human participant, we are risking them, and what's the benefit we are getting? Risk in the sense here individual participants are participating, so much risk being put on to the human beings. So this risk, what level it gives the benefit? That means a ethical committee has to ensure the benefits should overweigh the risk. Risk involved to the human participant, benefit outcome from the research. In this phase, benefits should overcome or outweigh the risk. In this manner, the benefit and risk being assessed. Whatever the risk being involved, that separately it has to be assessed, and the ethical committee and stakeholders have the responsibility of how much we can reduce. In the principles as mentioned, minimization of risk. Here also the minimization of risk being identified. The risk being classified into the three ways. One is lower to the minimal risk, very low to the minimal risk, no minimal risk. Like this, it's being classified. That means the study is taking the data, secondary data, tertiary data, meta-analysis data, openly publicly available data from internet. Those data we are utilizing. Those information is taken for the conduct of research in the system. That's a low and minimal risk, no minimal risk. Like this, we are considering. Other one is minimal risk. Minimal risk in the sense it's a kind of routine healthcare procedures. Routine, the patients we are doing the medical history, information is gathering. Those are considered as a minimal risk. Those conducts the study utilizing those resources and continuing in the sense that's considered as a minimal risk, low minimal risk. Next to the minimal risk, little bit overseas, excess for the minimal risk. So those risks mean we are conducting the research with the minimal invasion of the participants, human participants. Local, temporarily pain relieving, small blood sample collections. These are considered those involvement in the participants. Those studies are considered as the little bit or minimal increase over the risk. Otherwise, low risk. Then another is higher risk. Higher risk in the sense we are taking the lumbar puncture being involved in the study, the endoscopic procedure, like invasive procedures we are applying, then that's considered as a higher risk. So an ethical committee has to deeply assess this, then accordingly the proportions and their reviews will be given back. Next one is informed consent process. What are the other issues developed in the informed consent process? Participants have their rights to participate in the study. That consent has to be getting from the participants should be ensured. This informed consent process has the basically three components. One is information given to the participant. We are informing the information, informing to the participant. Second one is comprehend by the participant. That given information clearly we are ensuring is clearly comprehended by the participants. Third one is ensuring the voluntariness of the participant. Yes, by voluntarily participants being involved in the study. So three components actually should be ensured by the process called the informed consent process. According to the CDSCO guidelines, if we go, some of the informed consent process will take care of the audio and video as well. All the way CDSCO guidelines and other related to applicable area in general, ICMR guidelines is supporting. You have to follow in applicable area. So oral consent, certain level oral consent is enough, or no consent needed for this trial or clinical research. That also has to be confirmed by the ethical committee. Ourselves, we cannot consider that these studies, we are not taking any human information. We are not, it's the third tertiary or secondary data. We are involving more communication with the participant even. We cannot assume that no informed consent need for this research. That also has to be confirmed with the ethical committee. There is privacy and confidentiality here. Actually, big issues. How we are protecting the individual participants' privacy and how the study been confidentially we are working, because here we are doing the behavioral studies, social studies, individual genetic study. So data we are taking, biological material we are taking for the study. So how we are protecting all this? So access to unauthorized persons should be cut down, keeping the document available ready for any reviews. All those issues being addressed in this privacy and confidentiality. The next, if you see that distributive justice, as in the principle we mentioned that equality fairly distributed to all the populations. One way it is the rights of individual participants. They want to participate in the study. Other way, we are utilizing, we are taking them for the study purpose in the sense that should be very fairly distributed to all. It is applicable to all. Any social group, yes, it's applicable to all social groups. We should not follow or we should not go into any particular group alone for most of the studies or conducting study. The fairly distributed, the justice has to be ensured in these principles. The next is payment for the participation. Payment for the participation. Yes, participant, human participant, they are coming, participate in the study, they are risking themselves. Their expenses has to be taken care. The investigators or sponsors in the clinical trial will take for their traveling expenses, their stay expenses, their hospital expenses, all taken care, should be taken care by them. Investigators or sponsors or institutional conducting research, they have to take it care. So this is the payment for participations. Even legal authorized persons for the individual participants, they also have to, the expenses of their travel also has to take care. And compensation for harm. Here the compensation harm in the sense the harm can be physical, harm can be psychological, harm can be social, economical, legal. In all the aspects the harm can be considered. So whatever the harm is happened, for that there is a compensation, either by the money or other way. The compensation has to be made to the individual participants. In case of death, the participant family can get the compensation. So this all has to be ensured by the ethical committee. Ancillary care. During the trial, during the research, the investigators or sponsor can offer the medical care of the participants. Yes, it's allowable, and even incidental diagnosis happen during the study. That also has to take care. That expenses, that care also taken care by the investigators and the stakeholders always. That's ensuring ethical committee. Next, if we go the conflict of interest. Conflict of interest to the study stakeholder should ensure in all the areas, public conflict of interest, participant conflict of interest, or in the registry, or in the institutions, in the investigator level, society level. In all the way, the conflict of interest has to be ensured by the investigators or study stakeholders. The selection of participants. Here, participants in the sense that can be an individual and a society group also. So, what is the issues in the selection of participants? Here, the term is coming vulnerable population. We may have heard vulnerable. In the older guidelines, if you see before 2017, the basic guidelines, the gender even considered as vulnerable. Female gender, pregnant women, those they are considered as a vulnerable population. They should not involved in the study. But now it's not been considered as a vulnerable population since it's considered the rights of the individual participants. So what is vulnerable that been clearly described here. Vulnerable, the participants or those individuals, they themselves cannot protect their harm. Otherwise, in the here harm in the sense it's all physical, psychological, social, economical, legal, all the area that's considered as a harm. So those who have the incapable to protect their harmless, and they have to have, otherwise they have the possibilities of additional harm to those populations. All they are considered as a vulnerable population, along with the children. Children is considered as a vulnerable population. So if you want to add the vulnerable population, that in the sense, because one way it is considered as a rights to the vulnerable populations. Even children, yes, they are having the rights to participate in the study, but they are considered as a vulnerable population. When the study inserts, so directly addressing their problem, then it is advisable to take the vulnerable population into the study. Otherwise, the vulnerable population is a definition given here, should not be taken into the study. Even the consciousness, cognition affected population, unconscious patients, economically lower and hierarchy in the society, those all considered as a vulnerable population in certain area. Then community engagement. The studies are addressing the community. The studies conducted in the community. Here, community in the sense, even gender-wise considered as a community, culture-wise considered community, age also considered as a community. Certain group age population considered as a community. So, community in the sense not only the geological locations where they are dwelling, it involved in all the aspects. Some beliefs, some group they may have the belief. Yes, they are also considered the community. So the community setup, we are doing the research. The community engagement in the sense, we have, yes, already mentioned the distributive justice. Here, the community should be added fairly, treated fairly, that the community persons can be added into the EC. Ethical committee, when addressing a certain research, that for the community it's very sensitive. It may necessary, absolute necessary, but it gives certain level of disruptive in that area. Then you can call the community representatives from that particular committee and to involve in the studies also in the monitoring area, and in the post research also that been addressed. The guidelines are recommending after the research completion, if that the information is very essential or outcome is very essential to the society, to the public, to the individual, as community as we mentioned, it has to be understood them. Even the counseling is very outcome of the research mentioned, the counseling make the healthy society in the sense. It should be ensured, they should be the research stakeholders should have the counseling centers. Maybe it is close to the children, yes, school level, the counseling centers can be arranged. In certain students project, the post research to the populations, the participants is not possible, and that in time institutions should take the responsibility. Institutions should continue to ensure those participants also have the information, the benefit of information, benefit of research should reach them. In control group, certain research have the control group. Only the case group getting all the benefits. After the research, it is the responsibility, the control group also should receive the benefit of the research. That also being ensured here. Then other one is the post benefit sharing. Is in the community engagement, as I mentioned. Here it's purely telling about the benefit sharing to the society after the research. So far I mentioned some of the points for the counseling center setup, control group continuity, all actually being comes under the post benefit sharing. These are the basics ethical issues need to discuss in the ethical guidelines released by the ICMR guideline. Apart from this, many areas been discussed in the social studies, genetic studies, emergency situation studies, like recently the COVID situations, how the approval can be made, how the benefit and risk assessment been made, all been discussed in the guidelines, total guidelines. We have focused here only those principles and issues in those principles being discussed. And I am completing this based on these ethical issues. Any inquiries, please raise. Thank you for patience and thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable information regarding the principles and the guidelines towards the ICMR. And participants, do you have any queries or questions? Please post in your chat box, or you can unmute yourself and you can share your questions with sir. Participants, any questions? So thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable information and valuable time spent with us. Participants do join at 9:50 for tomorrow's session, and the link will be forwarded as soon as possible within half an hour. Thank you, participants. Have a good evening.